Oh, sorry guys. Sorry about the lighting. It's crappy. It's really sunny here in a heat wave. So, this is the video on the thing, what I talked about in his update video with the neurologist appointment. It all started, his 6-week appointment. His doctor noticed in his legs he's a little bit rigid, which the first thing that popped in my head was cerebral palsy, because I know what, I've had it, so I know what to look for. So she's sending him for a PT evaluation, which the hospital will drive me nuts, because they want to see the referral prescription thing first, so I just had to fax it over on Saturday. So I have to call them and see if, I would have figured they would call me by now. But anyway, she noticed that she was sending him for a PT referral. My cousin, who's she is a nurse. She's done pediatric nursing for the last 4 years, and she's going on to be a nurse practitioner. She was here when they dropped Gabriel off after the 4th of July. She was holding Blake, and she noticed the rigidness first, and then she said, well, he's not tracking like he's supposed to. Now, keep in mind, he's a preemie, and he is already a month delayed. But I've never had any problems with him tracking anybody he knows or stuff when I'm with him. So, then she noticed that he was tending to gaze downward. So they left. About 2 or 3 days later, I got a call from my grandma. Well, I need to call the pediatrician and get him, or talk to her about sending him to a neurologist because he's got sunset eyes, according to my cousin. My aunt and my uncle, in the same family, he's a neurologist, and he looked at Blake's pictures on Facebook and thought that he had the sunset eyes. And I never thought he did because he doesn't do it all the time. And from everything that I've read and everything, so they were concerned about hydrocephalus. They wanted me to call a doctor. I called the doctor. She said to make an appointment for him to see a neurologist. So I made an appointment for August 15th. That's the first they could get him in. So I had planned on going then. Get a call the next day. My aunt, from my grandma, my aunt is concerned, doesn't think it can wait, because she thinks he might have hydrocephalus, which for all you don't know what that is, it's water or fluid on the brain, or fluid, So I had to call the doctor's office, get an appointment that day for him to see one of the colleagues, not his regular pediatrician, to see what she thought, and they could expedite the process of getting him in earlier. So I took him there. She noticed a little bit of it, but she's not an expert in it. So she called the neurologist that Monday. I went on a Saturday. She called on Monday to get him in sooner. They got him in 2 days later on a Wednesday. So we went last Wednesday, and she said right away she doesn't have sunset eyes. It's just a normal reflex in babies, especially since he's a preemie, that when they get, because I've only noticed it when he gets excited or he sees something that interests him. He makes his eyes real wide, what Gabriel calls big eyes, and it looks like he's looking down. But she said if he would have had hydrocephalus, one, his head circumference hasn't changed at all. I mean, at one point the doctors at I think it was his 2 months, said his head really hasn't gotten any bigger. So she said his head circumference is normal, and he doesn't have sunset eyes, because if he had sunset eyes, they would be permanently down. He has range of motion in him, can move them up, down, side, whatever. His tracking's fine. He was tracking her all over the place. But so she ruled out the hydrocephalus, but she's still sending him for an ultrasound because she noticed he favors his left side. Now, for those of you that keep up with my videos, know that I have cerebral palsy on my left side, which means I favor my right side. But when I was a baby, they didn't notice until I started crawling and everything that I did favor my right side. And that's when they did a CAT scan and discovered I had cerebral palsy. So, if anything, he could have a mild form of what I have, but on the other side, she said. Or he could, some babies just tend to do that. They favor the one and they outgrow it. Or, and that would mean he would just, she said, more than likely he'd probably be a lefty. So that's what we're shooting for. We're hoping he doesn't have CP. He does use his right side, and so she's very optimistic he will outgrow it. And when like some doctors, when you ask questions, they don't because I know a lot of, I've had this since I was born, and I know what to look for, and when they say stuff like that, I get concerned, and when I ask questions, she was like, well, this is it. Like, she acted real snotty about it, and I was like, you know what, this is my son that I'm worried about. First it was a hydrocephalus, which threw me into a complete panic over nothing, and I said, if there is concerns, I'm gonna ask questions. And she's like, well, it wouldn't, you keep relating it back to yours. And I said, I know, because at first she's like, well, I'm not saying he's paralyzed. Well, duh, I could have told you that one. But, I just think there's some doctors that when a patient knows more than what they should, they get kind of uppity about it, like, oh, I went to medical school, blah, 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 and that's not how it is. I just know a lot about cerebral palsy, and I know, and because I told her, I said, there is a higher instance in premature babies because of, oxygen depletion, and he was in respiratory distress. And she said if there is anything, she's not saying he has a disability, but if there is, that it could have been caused due to the bleeding that I had that caused me to have him, because any loss of blood will affect the baby. So it could have been that. It could have been, he could have been depleted of oxygen, and because he did have respiratory distress and he was on CPAP. So it's basically a waiting game now to get the appointments and everything else. And so I guess it's a wait and see. If you all hear him talking, he's talking to his hands, and he's fascinated with his feet right now. So he's in that stage. But just keep him in your thoughts and prayers that everything goes well. Like I said, worst case scenario, he has the same thing I do, and I'd rather him not have it, just for the fact of I don't want him to go through the same thing I did with PT and OT, but just pray that everything goes well and he's fine, and more than likely he's a fighter like his daddy. So alright guys, I'll talk to you guys later. Love you guys, bye.